Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the fuel system of this little 10 horsepower here. The idea here is to install a fuel pump to use a modern tank. So as you work on these older motors, sometimes, some people anyway, they want to add a fuel pump to their motor. That way they can use one of the newer style gas tanks and a single easily replaceable hose. Now, they both have their benefits, I guess you could say. Let's dig into the steel one first. The steel one here is completely repairable. You can pop the top off, you can replace all the seals, gaskets, and lines. If I had a hose fitting on this one, you could rebuild the hose fitting. I have a video about doing that. So overall, these are maintainable. So if you have one, you can fix it. They are reliable, the hose is cheap enough, and it's what the engine was designed to be used with. They work great for the motors. The only problem is they are 50 years old. Finding one that isn't rusted inside is pretty hard to do. And most of the time they're all ugly. Now you can buy a restored one on eBay for a pretty decent price actually, but it's still 50 years old. You don't know how good the condition is internally or how much longer it'll last you. So there is that. This one is pretty dry. It's been sitting around for a long time. But even then I still get some pretty nasty looking fuel coming out of there. And it's pretty clean inside. So overall, they're decently cheap, reliable, easy to work on, but good luck getting one not rusted. Newer takes, stroll down to Walmart and you buy one. You can buy the hose too. I believe the tanks are about $40 to $50 and the hose is about $40 to $50. So, after taxes and whatever, gas to go get it, you're going to be $100 into this setup. And for a restored one of these, you're probably going to be at $100. So it's kind of a wash. Problem is, a new dual line hose will last you a very long time. These Atwood tanks, these rubber hoses they come with, these old arbs, they kind of deteriorate. A lot of people consider them a one-season hose, so every year expect to buy a new hose. This one's about 2 years old and it doesn't work at all. Now this gas tank leaks everywhere, which is normal for old unmaintained gas tanks. I could fix it, but don't really know if I want to. I like doing weird modifications to my motors. And that is why I'm going to be installing a fuel pump into this thing. So I like Evinrude parts, I like factory parts, so I will be using factory parts to do this conversion. There are a lot of ways to do this. You can buy a lawnmower fuel pump that operates off of a pressure pulse that you just plug in and hide under the calcium there, and it works fine. You can get inside, you can drill out the intake manifold to convert this pulse into a pressure to operate a Evinrude fuel pump. That's one option. I don't know, there's probably many different ways to do this. Now stock Evinrude fuel pumps mount to the bypass cover here, and that's where it gets its pressure to operate from. You then have a hose running in and out, in, fuel out to carburetor. So that's what I hope to put on this motor. I also plan to swap out this fitting for a modern one. So in 1958, they didn't have fuel pumps, but in 1960 they did. And the power heads are pretty similar. So what you can do is grab one of the bypass covers that has the provisions for the fuel pump and install that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, paint it, and call it a day. So this bracket is off a newer motor, I believe a 60, 62, somewhere around there. The plan is to install it there. It's all nice and painted and ready to go. A smart person would change the gasket here, and that's why I am not, because I am not smart. And I forgot to get one. So let's install that bypass cover and see where this takes us. Alright, I forgot to record, but I went ahead and popped off the old gasket, popped on the new one, and screwed on our cover. So that is our new bypass cover installed. So let's get a fuel pump on it now. Now this is a stock used and broken Evinrude fuel pump, but I have one question that I want answered from this thing. Fuel pump fits perfectly under there. So, a couple issues. The orientation of the output of this pump is right there. It needs to be facing down. With that done, I will be able to snake all the gas lines and everything through under here. So, I need to fix that fuel pump. So what I have here is a fuel pump that uses the correct orientation for the fuel line. Problem is it's off a late 70s 9.9, and if you look, they are a hair different. That 1/4 inch between the base here and the lack of base here is what's allowing this one not to fit. Alright, fuel pump has been slightly modified to have the correct outward spout. This actually is a different fuel pump than I showed you originally. This one's much newer than the rest, so I decided to roll with this one. I have a video on rebuilding one of these. If you give that a watch and then go over to Leroy's Ramblings, which I'll put a link to also, he has the instructions scanned on his website, and that will give you a pretty good idea of how to change the location of the outspout, if you will. But that is our fuel pump installed. Alright, I have some 5/16 fuel line that I'm going to route around another carb. And let it hang out right there for now. Obviously I'll trim that in a sec. So I'm going to get the old connector out of there, the fuel connector. Now, one of these two holes is large enough to accommodate our newer fuel line. Tight squeeze, but it'll work. Now, any old random connector will work for this. Devner, I mean. Who's calling me? Now we need some kind of zip tie, hose clamp, whatever you got. I'm using those fancy dancy fuel line ones. And you want to get it as tight as you can, so that works. So there's going to be some forcing and bending required here because the fuel line comes out this way, but it's over here. So what we're going to do is kind of snake it up. And you want to make sure that you have enough down here that it's not going to kink on you or anything. And that works pretty well. Obviously, you just got to trim the zip tie off. Now it does look a little kinked, but if I push in and blow on the hose, it's fine. There's no flow issues. So I'm going to keep the hose kind of up in the motor a little bit, just right about there. Now the plan is to come under the shift rod, little safety lockout lever thing, come up right through there. That won't interfere with anything. It moves it a little bit, but for the most part, doesn't really even touch it. Then I figured I would come up and attach in right there. So I'll trim another inch off of this and hook it up. And that should do it. Now for fuel line, or pump to carburetor rather, I'm going to do the same thing under the shift rod, run up to the front. Plug it in right like so. Again, barely any touching of the shift lockout. And let's get some hose tie zip clampy thingies on here. I'm probably just going to leave this one right there for now, just in case I have a leaky fuel cap. That's pretty common. But at the bottom, pretty comfortable with. I'm going to come back around the front. Now cut it right here. And another little hose clamp. I'll find it. Now we got to make sure our cover still fits. Yep, perfectly. Alright, flash is on, so you can kind of see here. The only thing left really to do is cover the airline. Cap that off, put a little zip tie hose clamp on it, and we are good to go. So, let's go give this thing a test start. Alright, got my little 3-gallon tank. Test hose here. Pumping the bulb. Carburetor's filling with gas. Alright. There's nothing. Well, that's it for today's video. I'm no outboard mechanic or anything, but I think that works quite well. Alright, anybody, if you got any questions, let me know. I'll see you next time. Oh, also, check to make sure you have room under the cowling before you put one of these in. I know a lot of the 7.5s and some Evinrude motors, the cowling shaped and attaches a little differently, and this probably won't fit under the hood. But this little 10 horsepower, obviously it does, so we're good to go.